She does not descend, she condenses like dew, deciding it is a star. In the hour when streets forget their names, a girl of radiance appears where nothing has any right to glow. First witnesses think they imagined it, second call it weather, third fall silent like a bell. She holds a staff of uncommitted brightness, and the air leans toward her the way grass leans to a storm. They will say she is innocent. The elements know better. They know a steward when they see one, a hinge disguised as a voice. Shadow thins until it learns to be honest. Dust arranges itself into the alphabet of dawn. When she exhales, windows recall the shape of warmth. The light she carries is not day, it is permission. Some call her Lux, but the name is smaller than what answers. She lifts a palm. From it, water spools as a silver sentence. Every drop is a vowel rolling downhill. The cobbles drink, then answer with mirrors, and in those mirrors walk former versions of the city. Everything is wet with rehearsal. Spectators pocket their certainty and stand with hands folded, as entering a sanctuary whose rules they will learn without understanding. Another breath and her hair becomes smoke. Fire loosens out of it as memory loosens from a mouth, reluctantly, then with joy. The flame is not red, hatred loves red, but a deliberate blue. Roof tiles soften and stiffen again, tempered. Iron fences forgive extraction. A baker miles away opens his oven and cries without knowing why. A statue cracks and closes in the same heartbeat. Wind follows as if waiting its turn. It lifts the square like a page and shakes dust from the margins. Leaves trace spirals. A child lets go of a string and the string refuses to fall, choosing to measure the air's pulse. Scholars climb to balconies and whisper names. Elementalist is honest and insufficient. One suggests saint, another, storm. A third writes nothing and watches the sky's mouth open, because the sky is learning a word and it is dangerous. Yes. The yes spreads. It rides water into cellars, fire into kills, wind into lungs that endured winters. With each ascent the city changes. Doors swell until kindness can pass, walls thin until apologies are audible. The cheap and faithful clock coughs up 2 lost seconds. She listens to the seconds like pearls tapped against teeth. You are late, she tells them, and they accept correction and return to work. The pavement invents a river without water. It moves up through the soles of shoes and out through the eyes of those who will finally cry. She sets her staff to the ground, it discovers root and drinks. Vines remember architecture. Branches rehearse vaulting. A deep green rises from brick and refuses pruning. Birds arrive like commas in a sentence, the day is eager to keep writing. Then the war remembers itself, not banners but residues. The square smells of oil and rain. Far away sleeping guns lick their lips. She flinches, not from fear but recognition. Light thins to a knife. A diagram unfurls over her shoulders, bright lines mapping distances nobody should measure. Roof to roof, hand to hand, wound to last word. Within the diagram wait figures made of ash and grammar, learning to be voices again. A cry rises, a sound like paper declaring it was a tree all along. She lifts both arms. Water knots into spheres. Fire writes along them in orange script. Wind signs its name. She lets the spheres fall. They do not strike, they choose. Each one finds a mouth that had learned to carry hate and extinguishes the sentence curling there, replacing it with something mouth-shaped and humble, like please. People say they saw miracles. They are wrong. They saw corrections. Miracles argue with gravity, corrections ask gravity what it meant and remind it gently. Stone that planned to become shrapnel changes its mind and returns to threshold. A thrown knife enters a paragraph of air and returns as restraint. A hand raised for harm becomes a roof over a face shaking with the surprise of being allowed to remain. The crowd, which earlier pressed forward as crowds do when they suspect their witnesses will be insufficient, falls back into a ring that knows itself sacred. In that ring stand the liminal, a mason, a washerwoman, a boy who trusts names of wind, a woman whose grief explains the tides. They look at her and know that looking is a vow. Because nothing bends forever without deciding to break or become its curve, the rupture arrives. It is not loud. A stillness drops that contains every sound needed later. The square becomes a mirror. In it the city is on fire and underwater and entirely wind and also grown from roots too patient to argue. She stands 4 times in 4 corners at once. Each of her draws a line through what could happen and chooses a narrower river. She accepts the wound that follows. Blood learns light and refuses haste. Children ask if she is a queen. Nobody answers. Queens are crowns and rooms. She is crossroads. Queens are portraits. She is permission to paint, the oil on knuckles, the rag that learns by touch what is finished. People who need rulers cannot love her properly. People who need songs find their throats. At last the day remembers itself and continues. The elements withdraw without leaving. Fire goes back into bread and the courage it tastes like. Water returns to cups and the mouths that know how to receive. Wind returns to roofs and the windows that practice forgiveness. Vines pretend to be decorations and memorize famine. She lowers her hands and the staff unlearns root. A bow after an argument both sides deserve to win. Witnesses disagree about the ending. Some swear she vanished like a hymn when the last listener leaves. Others say she stepped into a shadow and the shadow accepted tuition. The baker weighs flour and discovers his scale has forgiven a sin against yeast. The soldier leaves his polished certainty on a bench and walks home light-headed. The magistrate signs a reprieve and feels his handwriting improve. Long after, the square keeps a brightness that does not come from sun. At night a pale ring shows where no vendor sets a cart. Reins to either side begin quarrels and finish them by morning. Stones within the ring do not know discord. Children play at the edge and their games become exact. Lovers stand within and discover they can say what they meant without flinching. If you return alone and close your eyes, you can still hear her. The vowels of water, the patience of fire, the clean rib cage of wind. Kneel and place your palm flat and you will feel green thinking in its sleep. If you open your mouth and cannot find the word, the missing word is yes. If the yes frightens you, it belongs to more than you and intends to use you as a sentence. They will ask later what she wanted. One is for smaller things. She served. She corrected. She left. She taught the day to bear its own light again. And somewhere, when war walks out of memory and tries on its old coat, a girl of radiance turns her head. In the instant before she moves, windows clear their throats, cats weigh an unseen weather, farmers consider mercy, the river counts itself. Then the elements rise in her like a choir and the square brightens. If she returns, do not cheer. Listen. The remedy is quieter than the injury. The hinge is smaller than the door. Step back so the light can occupy you without hurting you, and bring water for the embers left in your pockets. Call none of it magic. Call it belonging. When you sleep, dream of alphabets written in rain, of bread that remembers fields, of a city willing to lift its face to the day and not be ashamed to see itself.